Today, dear friends, we'll be talking about a historical figure who has sparked a lot of controversy. The figure we're discussing today is King Farouk, the king of Egypt, Sudan, and Gaza. There are sources claiming that King Farouk is a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, while others state that he has Albanian roots. We'll delve into the story of the largest secret arms deal he was involved in, and most importantly, his connection with Adolf Hitler and King Faisal's role in all these events. We will answer all these questions and explore all these details. So, let's not drag out the introduction any longer. Let's begin. The story begins in Egypt, in the city of Alexandria, in the year 1953. King Farouk was sitting on his throne in the Altan Palace, relaxing, when he heard the sound of tanks surrounding the palace from all sides. Officers stormed the palace in a strange manner, intimidating King Farouk. He was frightened, unsure of what was happening. They approached him with their weapons drawn and handed him a document, ordering him to sign it without reading it, threatening to shoot him if he didn't comply. Terrified and trembling, King Farouk signed the document, which turned out to be his abdication from the throne of Egypt and Sudan. Afterward, the army arranged for his exile to Italy. He left Egypt for Rome, where he went to his favorite restaurant for breakfast. While drinking his juice, he suddenly felt severe abdominal pain, dropped the glass, and collapsed, screaming in agony. Within minutes, King Farouk passed away. Egypt learned that their former king had died. Was this a conspiracy by a group plotting against King Farouk? Logically, since they had already forced him to abdicate, what would be the point of killing him? To understand this, let's go back to the year 1517 AD. At that time, Egypt was part of the Ottoman Empire, which was weakening due to the ambitions of its rulers. When Britain heard this news, they decided to exploit the situation to their advantage. At that time, India was under British rule, and there were conflicts between Britain and France over India, as it was a crucial trade route for spices. Napoleon Bonaparte, the French leader, decided to disrupt Britain's plans by cutting off their trade routes, gathering his army to invade Syria and Egypt. At that time, Egypt was under the rule of the Mamluks, who were a group of corrupt rulers. Napoleon found it easy to conquer Egypt due to the Mamluks' poor governance, thus breaking Britain's influence. When the Ottomans learned of France's occupation of Egypt, they decided to intervene. The Ottomans provoked Albania, which was under their control, leading to Muhammad Ali, an Albanian, and his army entering Egypt. After numerous grueling battles with the French, the Ottoman army successfully expelled the French from Egypt. Muhammad Ali gained immense popularity among the Egyptians, who petitioned the Ottomans to appoint him as their ruler. Muhammad Ali was incredibly intelligent and began rebuilding Egypt, enhancing its agriculture, industry, and politics. He thought, why shouldn't I take full control of Egypt? After all, he had liberated Egypt from the French and was now the ruler. He decided to establish complete control over Egypt and even annex Sudan, a region with fertile agricultural land, thus expanding his rule. Muhammad Ali continued to develop Egypt's exports and strengthen the Egyptian army, which primarily consisted of Albanians, to ensure loyalty and prevent any uprisings. According to the British historian Henry Dodwell in his book, The Founder of Modern Egypt, after his campaigns in the Hijaz, Muhammad Ali's men raided rural areas of Egypt, forcibly conscripting men and boys, tying them with ropes and marching them from Upper Egypt to Cairo. Muhammad Ali appointed them in the army. The author mentions that Muhammad Ali didn't enlist Egyptians in the army until 1822, after the wars against Saudi Arabia and the victory of Imam Turki bin Abdullah, who expelled the Ottomans and established the Second Saudi state. It was impossible for any Arab Muslim, whether Egyptian, Sudanese, or Palestinian, to fight against a fellow Arab Saudi for the benefit of a foreign state. The army Muhammad Ali sent to the Hijaz was entirely Albanian. I also talked about the fierce war with the Bani Baka tribe. Let's fast forward to Muhammad Ali Pasha when he consolidated his rule over Egypt and Sudan. After Muhammad Ali Pasha passed away, his son Ibrahim took over. When Ibrahim died, his son Ismail Pasha inherited the throne. Ismail Pasha, greatly influenced by his late grandfather Muhammad Ali Pasha, decided to modernize Egypt and make it the most European-like Arab country of its time. Ismail Pasha developed Egypt, accumulating immense wealth as Egypt was incredibly rich. His reign expanded, and he began borrowing from France and Britain. Unfortunately, this marked the beginning of foreign intervention in Egypt's internal affairs. When Britain colonized Egypt, they claimed it was to protect their interests. They reached an agreement with the Ottoman Empire to co-colonize Egypt. Britain separated Sudan and Egypt, making them independent states, and appointed one of Muhammad Ali Pasha's descendants, Fuad I, as ruler of Egypt. Fuad married Nazli Abdul Rahim, who was 25 years younger than him. They had a son, and Fuad consulted a fortune teller who advised him to name all his children with names starting with the letter F for good fortune. Hence, he named his son Farouk. Fuad was thrilled to have an heir and pardon prisoners, distributing gold to the poor. Meanwhile, a revolution in Egypt led by Britain declared Egypt independent, though Britain still controlled Egypt from behind the scenes. Fuad raised Farouk in isolation, fearing for his life as he was his only son. Farouk was only allowed contact with his mother, sisters, and tutor. As a result, Farouk grew up sheltered, only interacting with his sisters. Fuad hired private tutors for reading, writing, arithmetic, horsemanship, politics, and warfare. By the time Farouk turned 13, Fuad started preparing him as the heir, sending him to conferences and important events. Britain, seeing Farouk as the future, offered to educate him in the UK. Despite Fuad's initial refusal, British pressure forced him to agree, provided personal bodyguards accompanied Farouk. Farouk went to the Royal Military College, but was initially rejected due to his age, 15, as they only accepted 18-year-olds. Fuad rented a palace near the college until Farouk reached the required age. During his stay in Britain, Farouk was greatly influenced by his bodyguard, Aziz al-Misri, who treated him like a son. From Aziz, Farouk developed a strong admiration for Germany and a profound dislike for Britain, despite being in Britain. Princess Nazli, his mother, contacted him, urging his immediate return to Egypt as his father was on his deathbed. Farouk returned, but sadly, his father died before he could see him one last time. Farouk ascended to the throne without completing his education and was unaccustomed to the outside world, making him a weak and insecure ruler under 18. He assumed the throne, but under the guardianship of Muhammad Ali Tawfiq. However, King Farouk's mother was not pleased with this arrangement. She approached a judge and asked him to resolve the issue of her son's age, as she was uncomfortable with Muhammad Ali Tawfiq being her son's guardian. The judge suggested calculating her son's age according to the Islamic calendar instead of the Gregorian calendar to expedite his independence in ruling. King Farouk quickly gained immense popularity because the people saw him as a young and energetic leader who would listen to their problems and develop Egypt. His relationship with the religious judge who helped him ascend to the throne was very strong, and he often appeared as a devout person who respected religious authorities. After turning 18, a conflict arose between the religious judge, who wanted Farouk to be crowned in Al-Azhar Mosque while holding his father's sword and swearing the constitutional oath, and the leader of the Waft Party, who insisted that Egypt was a civil state and that Farouk should take the oath in parliament. The dispute between the two parties escalated, but eventually, the Waft Party's stance prevailed. King Farouk was very displeased with the Waft Party, especially its leader, Mustafa al-Nahas, who never consulted him on any matters. As time passed, King Farouk decided to rig the elections to ensure the Waft Party's defeat and consolidate his power. During his travels in Egypt, he met a beautiful Egyptian girl of Circassian descent named Safanaz Zulfikar, whom he fell in love with and decided to marry. After their marriage, Hitler gifted him a car as a wedding present. Years passed, and World War II broke out between Germany, led by Adolf Hitler and Britain. King Farouk's sympathies leaned heavily towards Germany, influenced by his bodyguard Aziz al-Misri. Egyptians took to the streets, chanting "Forward, Rommel, forward," in support of the German military commander Rommel. Britain's spies in Egypt reported the widespread support for Germany, which infuriated the British. Britain accused King Farouk of violating the 1936 treaty, which stipulated that Egypt must support Britain in any war it led. This treaty was signed by Britain and the Wafd Party, led by Mustafa al-Nahas, whom King Farouk had ousted in the elections to rule without any political parties or coalitions. The Wafd Party, particularly Mustafa al-Nahas, was pro-British and sought to align closely with Britain. The British ambassador, Lampson, visited Cairo and met with King Farouk, warning him that they were aware of his deceit and support for Hitler. He gave Farouk an ultimatum: reinstate the Wafd Party under Mustafa al-Nahas within 48 hours or face consequences. The ambassador then left, leaving King Farouk in a difficult position. As the deadline approached, Britain made good on its threat. Tanks surrounded Abdeen Palace, where King Farouk resided. The British soldiers pointed their weapons at him, demanding he abdicate or face death. One of Farouk's advisors urged him to comply, as it was the only option to avoid being killed. Farouk agreed to reinstate the Wafd Party, but this decision led to widespread rumors that he was weak and a puppet of the British. A year later, an incident nearly ended King Farouk's life. While returning from a duck hunting trip in Ismailia, his car was hit by a British military vehicle, leaving him severely injured. As he lay in pain, he repeatedly said, "O Lord, your forgiveness." He refused treatment from the British doctor and was taken to a nearby military hospital. The accident caused severe complications, leading to significant weight gain over time. One of Farouk's trusted advisors suggested forming a special guard to protect him from political opponents and spies. Farouk established the Iron Guard for his protection. Meanwhile, internal conflicts within the British-supported Wafd Party led to its disintegration, and King Farouk replaced it with weaker parties. They all gathered to listen and obey. At the meeting, Queen Nazli, King Farouk's mother, was involved with Ahmed Hassanein Pasha, the chief of the royal court. Let me give you some background on Ahmed Hassanein Pasha. Initially, he deceived King Farouk's father's first wife, Shwiker. Shwiker and Queen Nazli, King Farouk's mother, had a rivalry. Shwiker used to say that Farouk should have been her son, not Nazli's. Hassanein Pasha, infatuated with Shwiker, later fell in love with Nazli, King Farouk's mother, the same man who married her rival. Ahmed Hassanein Pasha expressed his feelings for Queen Nazli, but would he marry her while she was still legally married to someone else? Of course not. He divorced his wife to marry Nazli. However, King Farouk vehemently opposed this relationship, saying, "How can my mother marry a servant in our palace? This cannot happen." Despite her son's disapproval, Nazli fought for her love and reportedly married him secretly. Tragically, Ahmed Hassanein Pasha died in an accident, revealing to King Farouk that his mother had secretly married and dishonored the throne. Consequently, Farouk stripped his mother of her title as the Queen Mother. Heartbroken, Nazli left Egypt to live in France, taking her daughter, Princess Fathia, with her. In France, Princess Fathia fell in love with Riyad Ghali, a Christian consulate employee in Marseille. Despite their religious differences, they fell in love. Riyad insisted that for them to marry, Fathia had to convert to Christianity, which she did. They married, and Fathia abandoned her Islamic faith, an act that shocked many. Returning to King Farouk, his relationship with his wife worsened, particularly after she bore him only daughters, while he desired a son to inherit the throne. Hearing about his sister's conversion and marriage to a Christian, he issued a decree stripping her of all privileges. Overwhelmed by pressure, Farouk turned to gambling to escape his problems. He gambled heavily, and scandals followed him and his family in the media. The government he formed was ineffective, leading to widespread poverty and economic decline in Egypt. Egyptians protested against King Farouk, and students chanted, "Down with the tyrant." Farouk felt endangered and engaged in money laundering to secure funds for potential exile. His popularity declined further until 1946, when a miracle seemed to save him. During an Arab campaign supporting Palestine, Farouk saw an opportunity to restore his image. He decided to purchase weapons left over from World War II, which became known as the corrupt deal. When the war between the Arabs and Jews finally broke out, 50,000 Arab soldiers faced 170,000 Israeli soldiers armed with the best weapons from Britain. The Arabs were decisively defeated, and Jewish settlements expanded in occupied Palestine. 2 years later, the Free Officers, led by Gamal Abdel Nasser, emerged, declaring Farouk unfit to lead the country and blaming him for the failed war against the Jews. Problems with Queen Farida escalated because she couldn't provide him with a male heir. Farouk divorced her, angering Egyptians who loved Queen Farida and chanted against him. Farouk then married Nariman, who had been engaged to a state employee. He pressured her fiancé to break off the engagement so he could marry her. She bore him a son, Ahmed Fouad. By 1952, Farouk attempted to secure his rule by spreading rumors that he was connected to the Prophet's lineage. The competition between the United States and Britain intensified, with the US supporting the Free Officers, including Nasser. The movement grew, and Farouk feared its power. His advisors reassured him that it was insignificant. However, in 1953, the Free Officers, led by Nasser, stormed Farouk's palace and forced him to abdicate. His hand trembled as he signed the abdication paper. Farouk took his belongings, preparing for exile to Naples with his wife and children. Some officers wanted to execute Farouk, but Nasser opposed the idea, saying, "He did not resist. There is no need for execution." Farouk arrived in Naples, constantly fearful for his life. He sent his daughters to Switzerland for their safety. In Egypt, Nasser was declared president, abolishing the monarchy. Nasser, who had helped the military with American support, switched allegiance to the Soviet Union. With tensions high, Nasser's government feared Farouk might return and cause unrest. Ibrahim al-Baghdadi, posing as a waiter, poisoned Farouk's favorite guava juice in Rome. As we discussed earlier, Farouk drank the juice and died in the restaurant. I hope I have provided a comprehensive summary of King Farouk's life, the King of Egypt, Sudan, and Gaza. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the notification bell.